Hey guys, I'm back in Germany, back at home after 3 weeks in California. And what shall I say? California was a blast. It was so surprising in so many ways that I decided to make an episode on that to wrap this all up for you and to give you my favorite takeaways so you are well prepared for your next or your first trip to California. It's not only about wine, but of course, this is a wine podcast. It's focused on wine. We will talk about nature, we will talk about bits of sightseeing, some cities, drinks industry in general, but the focus is wine. And right now, let's go. I'm excited. But before we dive into this episode, the biggest surprise in California, and the people that know me a bit, that are loyal listeners to this podcast, know I'm a fan of many wines, of many varieties, of many regions, but let's say I dislike Primitivo because usually Primitivo, there are some really good ones, but usually it's not my style. It's usually a bit overcooked in fruit. It's, yeah, a bit too full bodied for me, often very high in alcohol and just too, too over everything for me. And I haven't found my personal Primitivo. And fun fact, when I started working in wine and going deeper into wine, I thought that Primitivo is the name for the grape because the taste is quite like simple, primitive, you know what I mean? And I found out through research and all this stuff that Primitivo actually is the name because primi, the number one, first in Italian, stands for the first grape variety that arrived from Greece and Egypt and other countries on the peninsula of Italy. This is why it's called Primitivo. And I discovered my favorite one. And for those of you who don't know, Primitivo in California is called Zinfandel. It's actually the same grape variety. There is many styles at least, and I guess one of the biggest productions and the most known style is the one from Lodi, quite powerful, also quite juicy, full-bodied, high in alcohol red wines. There's another style that's quite famous in the US. It's called White Zinfandel. This is usually a quite thin, easy drinking, simple wine. Let's put it like this. It's an easy wine, usually easy drinking, sitting at low prices on the shelves. And I discovered my favorite Zinfandel. And it's not just one Zinfandel. It was actually, I was lucky, let's put it like this, when I bought this bottle. The company is called Fetzer. They're quite famous. They have a name in the US. And it's a 1974, guys. This wine is 50, it was, I drank it, it was 50 years old. And this wine was absolutely amazing. I mean, you need another palate for this wine, but it was just smooth. It was like a silk blanket for your palate. There were still tannins, there were still some fruits, there was leather, it was earthy, it was just smooth and elegant. And it's the level says 12% alcohol, and it doesn't really suit the back label because they said they harvested it at on October 1st at 25 bricks, which is actually quite high, resulting in a potential alcohol of around 14. There was some residual sugar, and it was actually not 14, but I think it wasn't 12 as well, maybe 12 and a half to 13. But this was smooth, guys, and I really liked that wine. I really enjoyed it. And even after 3 days, there was still some left. The wine was there, it was alive, and it was a total surprise to me. I loved it, and it was so good that I even kept the bottle and brought it home from the US, and this will get a very special place on my shelf in the tasting room. So this was my biggest surprise actually, and the rest I will share right now. Have fun. Welcome to the Pinot and Pixel podcast episode number 187, back in my wine cellar with a really good microphone, good lighting, and everything it needs to make a great episode for you guys. So let's start this episode about California, Californian wine, Californian wine regions with a short overview over the trip I made. California is actually quite big, and if you want to do this, let's say all over, so if you want to visit many places, all wine regions, and also there's some really interesting spots when you're interested in nature, when you want to go to the beach, when you want to see other crops than wine, for example. There's also oil industry if you're interested in that. California has so many things to see and to visit that it will take some time. And I have 3 weeks, and my focus was on the wine regions, on the drinks industry, because there's also really interesting stuff in the alcohol-free industry, breweries, wine and food pairings, so gastronomy, food, and good food is not easy in the US, as some of you might know, and of course, nature as well. So there's the Yosemite, there's the Mono Lake, Lake Tahoe, there's so many great regions, and you can do almost everything within an hour. You can go hiking in the mountains, and 4 hours later, you can lay down on the beach and just enjoy the sun. Crazy. Our focus for this episode will mostly be wine, and to give you just a feeling and overview, I started in LA, and the area of LA is also already a wine growing region. And when you start over there, it depends on what you are really interested in. My focus, of course, were the famous regions and the regions that are into Pinot Noir and that produce different styles of Pinot Noir. This is where I recorded episode 185. So if you are especially interested in Pinot Noir, 185 is your episode. And if you have become a fan of Pinot Noir through the movie Sideways, episode 183 might be your episode. So my trip started in LA, and then I drove northwards direction Santa Barbara. There are many regions especially popular for Pinot Noir. Then I crossed the country through the Central Valley to the Sierra Nevada, a quite dry and hot area, drove up to Yosemite, a very famous national park, especially known for the big redwoods, for the very big old trees. Some are 2,000 years old. They have a huge diameter. The redwoods, the sequoia trees. It's absolutely amazing. If you find the time, at least try to find some of those trees. And if you can't afford or you don't have the time to go to a national park because it's sometimes a long way to drive, then just go to Google Maps and enter redwood trees. And then click on search. And what it does, this is my discovery of the last months, you can use Google Maps as a research tool. And in that case, you're looking for redwoods. And what it does, it not only browses the names of cities and of point of interest, of poise, it also browses the reviews of people. So if somebody said, I don't know, I was here at the parking place there, at the parking lot of highway number 250, and I spotted some redwoods, beautiful place to have a 20 minutes walk, this will show up. This is a pro tip just for you. Take it and enjoy. And I also use it for restaurants, for example. So if you are in a foreign city and you don't know where to go, I usually look for, I don't know, vegan food or a good wine cellar or a good wine menu, and then it browses the reviews and maybe you discover your next favorite place. Then from Central Valley up to Yosemite, then we cross the mountain range again through Central Valley, and then to the coast to Monterey. Monterey was probably my most favorite region, I guess. More information is on episode 185 as well. And then we crossed San Francisco, Golden Gate Bridge, of course, up to Mendocino. And Mendocino, beautiful area. You can have a drive along the San Andreas Lake. And the San Andreas, what is the translation in English? I have no clue. So basically where the two tectonic plates were moving against each other and caused earthquakes and volcanic action in the area. And there is also a lake and you can just drive along. And this is kind of actually it's not a lake because there is access to the ocean, but this place is so calm. There are no waves at all. It's very flat and it's so calm, especially the underwater life, that they are growing oysters over there. So there's many oyster farms along the highway, and also super interesting area. And then from Mendocino, of course, going down to Sonoma Valley, all the famous regions, Russian River Valley, Napa Valley, and Caneros. And then from there, I went down to San Francisco again, some wine bars, restaurants, really good food. And then I flew back home. So this was my trip. I didn't manage, of course, to visit all wine regions, but at least I tried to see as much as I could and to try some wines from the area. And of course, I also used the possibility to talk to the people, to interview people, like merchants, winemakers, tourists, locals, and this all to get an overview of the region. And this is what I want to share with you today. Generally, there is not a big difference in preparing a wine trip or a trip to a wine region or to a fair, because the main steps are always the same. You prepare yourself, you make a schedule, so you do some research, you make a plan, a schedule, and then you try to be on time and all this stuff. And if you are interested in the specific different steps for this, episode 151, How to Prepare for a Wine Fair, also accounts for how to prepare for a wine trip. I will put the link in the show notes. There's also a blog article if you're more a reading person. And this basically also accounted for California. But my main facts for California were a bit different. My three main steps were preparation, reservation, and moderation. And those three are really, really important, especially in California. California is a very big region, is a very famous region. The latest in 1976, they gained, of course, attention through the judgment of Paris, and due to the fact that both the red and the white category was won by wines from California. The whole world recognized there is good wine in California, and of course, they worked on that. Then, as we all know, Americans know how to do marketing and sales. They're quite good at that. And they managed to grow the image of the regions, especially of Napa Valley, so much that everybody in the world is at least familiar with the name Napa Valley or wines from California. And you also feel that in the area. And this is why my main steps are preparation, reservation, and moderation. Because if you only have a limited amount of time, you need to know what to visit and when to visit. And this takes some time to read, to spot the wineries you want to visit. And of course, we also talked about that in many episodes, especially during the weekly update. The regions in California, they know how to sell their products to people. And when I talk about products, it's not only about the physical products, it's also about entertainment, about events. And you have to pay usually a fair amount. Sometimes it feels a bit overpriced, especially when you're coming from Europe, for tastings, for events, for wine and food pairings. I felt the average price for a normal tasting sits around $70-$80. And compared to wine tastings, for example, in Central Europe or even in emerging regions such as the UK, this is at least double the price. And the question always is this a good price value? And the answer is, we have no clue. You have to experience that. Read reviews, read articles, look at social media, what the people are talking about, what the people are, of course, also posting, what they are talking about. And then you get a feeling, is this my place I want to go? And this is what I did. And I spotted some wineries in every area. I said hello. And then the second point, reservation, comes into play. Because, there's many wineries that accept things that are called walk-ins, meaning you just stop by, say hello, and ask, can I take part in a tasting? And some wineries are able to do that, but sometimes the staff is so limited. They only do reservations, and they say, sorry, we're either closed or only open by reservation. Or when you are in the area, they say, sorry, the next spot is in 2 days or so. I even had wineries that were where the next spots were available. What was it, 7 or 10 days in the future? So reservation, just don't come over if you want to see your favorite winery, or I don't know, you only have the time for 1 or 2. Please reserve your spot. This is important, and especially for tastings that sit around 60 to 80 bucks or even more. Make a reservation. Usually every website of the winery is able to do so, and if you don't find anything on the website or on social media, just text them. Usually they answer between, let's say 24 to 48 hours, something like this. Sometimes you don't get an answer, so either text them again, call them. I mean, it's English, it's easier than to call wineries in, I don't know, French or Spanish speaking regions if you're not familiar with the language. This could be an option, but reservations are important. I was quite lucky enough that 2 wineries that popped up more like a random thing because they were recommended by people I just met in place in California. I was lucky enough to be able to take part in a walk-in. This worked in that case, but please don't rely on that. Make your reservations. And the third point, moderation, is the most important one because this might make some people laugh. Americans are not used to spit. They don't know how to do that. I mean, I saw so many groups. They arrive at the winery, they say hello, they book the tasting, 4 or 5 people, they drink everything. There are no spittoons if you don't ask for them. They drink everything, and then one of them or 2 of them are driving. And this is dangerous, guys. And sometimes the tastings have between 5 to 7 wines, and you can calculate that. It's not like tastings in Germany where you get your 40, 50 milliliters. Usually it's like a fair amount of wine. I would say 100, 125 milliliters. And after 6 wines, you drank a bottle of wine. And you're definitely not able, and even if you feel like you are, don't do it, please. So either spit, drink less, or I don't know, just don't swallow everything. So moderation is key. And secondly, sometimes it's quite hot, especially in the vineyards and the tasting areas when you sit outside. Usually, America is quite used to air conditions. So if the tasting is inside, you have to bring a jacket. But if you're sitting outside, it could be a good idea. No, forget the could. It is a good idea to eat something in advance. It's really important to get your base for the tasting. Seriously, guys. And of course, if you want to sit outside, don't forget the sun protection. This all seems like, super maybe easy or too easy recommendations, but seriously, it's not to be foolish. It's so important. You even don't feel the danger, neither with alcohol nor with the sun, because if you remove the wind that is coming from the ocean, you have 35 to 4 degrees and the sun is just smashing at you. So just the wind regulates the feeling, and sometimes it's just 20 degrees Celsius when you're sitting outside. It could be really dangerous. And maybe after half an hour, it's already too late. So moderation means get yourself a spittoon, eat enough, sun protection, and don't drink and drive, guys. The limit in the US, people told me, is 0.8, and usually they don't care. The interesting thing is that there were so many signs at the highways saying, report drunk drivers 911. And I even talked to a local person that said, we were calling 911 once because we saw a car going like weird ways on the highway, and they came over and the person drank too much. So be aware of that. Funny thing, when we talk about drinking and driving and not only being a tourist, but usually, even if you're a local, when you drive to a winery for a wine tasting, usually you are considered being a tourist. How do you spot the tourists in a wine region? By the red teeth. It's a red wine area. There is Chardonnay and Chenin and all this stuff, but usually it's either Pinot or the Cabernet Merlot, so the Bordeaux blends, the Bordeaux varieties, or Southern Rhone. So the main focus is red. And this is why many of the people you will see have red teeth, and you can spot the tourist, or at least the person who has been to a wine tasting. As I said, California was also a surprise for me because it's different in so many ways. At least, I mean, I visited states such as North Carolina, Michigan, Indiana, Minnesota, and right now California. And all of them are totally different when it comes to culture, especially when it comes to wine and food culture, to price level, all this stuff. They're separate states actually, and sometimes, especially the tax system is quite weird. It's so weird that even the locals don't get it. But California is a bit different. At least in California, it's easier to eat healthier because fast food might not be your first address, and due to the fact that there are so many people living and also many tourists are coming, there is more availability of a variety of shops of food culture. So let's say you can eat Persian, you can eat Lebanese, you can eat Turkish, you can eat even German, English, traditional American fast food stuff. So all the burgers are there. You have Taco Bell. Mexican food is quite big, especially in California. And there is many options, and at least you usually are able to find healthier options to not only rely on fast food. And also there are some supermarkets, stuff like, I don't know, Whole Foods, or I discovered Trader Joe's for me. And Trader Joe's, as somebody told me, belongs to Aldi, and they have their own brands, and those own brands also offer vegan options, for example, quite healthy stuff such as hummus or prepared salad. And why do I tell you this? America is so focused on sugar. They add sugar to everything. And even if you have your favorite product in your home country in, I don't know, Central Europe or Australia, when you see the same product in the US, there's a different recipe. There is more sugar in it. Even the easy soft drinks are usually high in sugar. There's, I don't know, the porridge, everything contains sugar. And I found my healthy stuff, the everyday stuff I ate while driving, while visiting, at Trader Joe's actually. And there was also some really good places to eat, not only in San Francisco and LA. My favorite, just to spoil that, my favorite city was Monterey. Beautiful place. And I mean, I also told that in the episode 185 when we talked about Pinot. It feels safe over there, actually. Many people go there to retire after they have been working for 45 years in the US. Super beautiful area. You have wine, you have wine and food culture. You have beautiful beaches. And as I said, it feels quite safe to be there. So food is a big thing. Sugar is a big thing. You have to pay attention what you want to eat, but at least it was easier to eat healthier in California. And when it comes to wine, there were some things I discovered that surprised me, both in positive and negative ways. And I don't want to group them. I just want to talk about what was my experience and maybe what you have to have an eye on and what you should look out for. And the first thing is, first and foremost, America is the country that knows marketing and sales. They know how to do that. Storytelling is a big thing over there. And of course, sometimes this also results in higher prices, but they are able to get the price for what they sell because they are really good in that stuff. And if you're deeper in, we talk about wine, if you're deeper in wine, sometimes it's not the worst idea to question what they tell you. And I mean, I'm super interested in everything that has to do with viticulture, with winemaking. And sometimes I even discovered when I asked my questions and they were going a bit deeper under the surface, they sometimes weren't able to answer them. And sometimes they wanted to answer because, I don't know, they wanted to claim they knew everything. And they gave me wrong answers, or answers I really had to question. Like, I don't know, what does sustainable mean? I mean, we work sustainably. Yeah, what does that mean? Yeah, we care about everything. But of course, we spray fungicides and pesticides and stuff. So it's a thing. We'll talk about that in a second. Marketing is key. They know how to do that. And the good thing about this is they also know how to give you an experience. Seriously, guys, the tastings over there, they are an experience. This is stuff you usually won't get. They really know how to give you this feeling that you are special, that this is something really good. Normally everything fits. It's usually the tastings are just 1 hour, maybe 1:15, but they sell you 4 to 5 wines, then they put 6 or 7 in total, and they tell you a story. They give you special areas, and sometimes even one person in the tasting room is feeding 3 to 4 couples or even groups, and this is well made, and you still have the feeling that you're special. So this is what they're really good at. And even if you paid, I don't know, 60, 80, $100 for a tasting, afterwards you I felt that it was worth it. Every tasting I did was worth it. Seriously. So this is a thing they really know how to do. And I was thinking about if I would ever build my own winery or at least a tasting room for something, I would take my team, fly to California, go to one of those fancy wineries and just let them take part in a tasting so they get the feeling of how to do that. This is really the perfect training. I mean, I took some notes if you're interested in that, but this is what I would do. I can highly recommend that if you're interested in that. When it comes to storytelling, I mean, of course, it's a part of marketing and it's a part of experience as well. There is 2 things you have to be aware of. One thing is greenwashing, and the second thing is what I call brownwashing. I don't know if this is the right word, but I just chose it. Greenwashing means they talk a lot about green stuff. They use a lot words such as sustainable or Napa Green. There's even a certification called Napa Green. And the weird thing is this has nothing to do with organic farming. They even use the weird stuff such as Roundup, and they are still allowed to do so until 2026. There's an article about that. I would put the link in the show notes. Is Napa really greenwashing? And I mean, it depends on the company. I visited companies, wineries that work sustainably, that work organically, and they even are Demeter certified. But sometimes it's more like the story behind, and it gets even worse when we talk about terroir. There were so many stories of the terroir in the wine. Sometimes they treat it like a myth, and in the end, when you ask 2 or 3 questions, the answers really disappoint you. Yeah, it's like, this is the perfect terroir for our great wines. And, really? How did you choose to plant this variety? Yeah, that was this plot, and we had to plant something. And I mean, California was quite big with Cabernet to that time. So we planted Cabernet, and this turned out to be the best wine we had. And this not only happened once, guys. This is part of their marketing strategy. And I mean, don't get me wrong. They produce great wines. Really, especially in Sonoma and Napa and in the regions that have reputations, they make great wines. But those are made wines. They are round, they are polished, they are, either elegant or at least just it's a complete package. You buy a perfectly designed product. Usually there are no edges and stuff. And even if you have a wine that is 2 years old, 100% Cabernet Sauvignon, usually there is tannins like drinking espresso after brushing your teeth in the morning, and it's still smooth. You know what I'm saying? And this is why I would say they know how to make great wine. They know how to make wine that is age-worthy. But if you are a fan of terroir, so see what this plot with that microclimate does to the grapevines, and what is the influence on the viticulturist in the vineyard, and how does he preserve that in the wine cellar, this might be not a thing, especially in regions such as Napa and Sonoma. But I mean, there is always exceptions, and I talk to many wineries that really do care and that know what they are doing, and they really work in a good approach, in an approach respecting nature, environment, society, and also, of course, the team. And this is the thing. Napa Green is focused on the social environment in the winery. So the sustainability is a thing, but it's not about the sustainability of the business, the team, and the vineyard. So the farming, it's usually focused on the social factors. And this is a good thing, but If it lacks the other two, especially when you use the word green, it might get a bit weird. And of course, in addition, there's another article I will also put in the show notes. Napa, and not only Napa, the other article talks about Napa, but the wine regions in the US are based on this AVA system, which basically means that this is the region where the grapes coming from, and it has to be at least 85% from that area to put this on the label. And there is barely or even no rules existing at all when it comes to yield management, special farming techniques, or hand harvest, treatments in the wine cellar, what you can do, what you can't do. This is missing. And there are some people calling for more rules, like, I don't know, respecting or at least reflecting what famous regions such as Tuscany or Bordeaux have done over the last 2,000 years, and at least over the last 200, 300 years building their wine laws, resulting in very high quality and maybe every now and then, every here and there, in an idea of terroir and an identification of a specific microclimate. Maybe the Americans don't need that at the moment because they are good at marketing and sales, but this is one fact you have to consider. The quality level is there, it is high, and I even had the feeling that what I said once about Bordeaux, that when you get a bottle of Bordeaux, that is at least 20 euros. It's usually a bottle that can age for 10, 15, 20 years. Usually. There is, proven evidence, put it like this. And I had the feeling that this also accounts for Napa and for Sonoma. So when you have wines over there that were, I don't know, my second favorite wine during my trip was a 1997 Pine Ridge Merlot. And usually I'm not a Merlot drinker, not because of Sideways, but it's not my grape actually, but there is some great styles. And this was 100% Merlot, or I say 97 or so. Great wine. 1997, still alive as hell. Could get 10, 15 more years in the wine cellar. And this surprised me in a really, really good way. So that especially Napa and Sonoma are able to produce high quality wines, let's say sitting around $30 plus on the shelf in retail or at the winery, that can age for 15, 20 years if you are interested in that. So the quality level is definitely there. There is some shitty stuff as well, of course, but when you take this $20 line, 25 maybe, usually you get good quality or very, very good quality. And the price level, of course, is a bit higher than, especially compared to Europe. Maybe you compare it with Champagne or with the UK. But I mean, when we talk about quality in France or in Germany or in Austria, we are more located in the price range around 10 to 15 euro, age worthy 15 to 20. So a bit lower than the US. Nevertheless, quality is there, just with a bit of a higher price level. And then the biggest surprise for me was, I would call it the wine and food culture. I had the feeling that this enjoyment of a good bottle of wine is more secondary or even tertiary. It's more about drinking, social gathering, and especially with the focus more on alcohol than an enjoyment. So people do wine tastings, of course, to have a good time together, but also to get drunk, actually. And this is also, I think, the reason for usually smaller wine menus when you go to restaurants. And guys, I can't tell you how disappointed I was during the whole trip. There were no wine glasses. If somebody from the US is listening, working in the wine industry, what the hell is going on with your wine glasses? Usually it's just tumblers. There is no stem at all. Or it's those old crappy little ones where you just pour 130 milliliters and the glass is full. And then usually the people grab it like, I don't know, cheap beer glass or wine glass and just swallow it in one or two shots. Usually very heavy glass, very thick glass. There were only 2 tastings where I was served wine in a really good wine glass. And I'm not talking about those high quality stuff things. I'm talking about wine glasses, wine glasses where you can enjoy a good glass of wine. Imagine the situation, you're in a restaurant, in a good restaurant, and you already know that you will have to pay 40, $50 per person just for the food. And then you order a bottle of wine and it's served in a shitty glass. It just, you know, what they do right with the entertainment and with the experience in wine tastings on wineries, it that goes totally the wrong direction, wrong way in restaurants. I mean, there is special restaurants, but usually the normal restaurants, they're more focused on food and less on wine. There were some good places. I had some recommendations in episode number 185. At least the wineries know how to do that. So when you book a tasting, they usually have their wine glasses and they are good to enjoy wine. And then, of course, we talked about that healthy food versus just how can I put that unhealthy food? I mean, it's a bit weird to say that, but usually let's put it like this: heavy food and light food. And especially when it's warmer outside, you want to get healthy, but also food, but also full. There are only few options available. This needed some research again with Google Maps, but it worked. It totally worked. And my biggest discovery were vegan restaurants. The vegan scene is quite big in the US, and Mexican restaurants. And there is chains as well. I won't recommend to go to chains because usually then you get this heavy oversauced food. We were at a place, I can't remember the name, and I mean, I don't want to kick somebody's ass or so, but we ordered a burrito, and I guess 30% of the burrito consisted of sauce. Everything was swimming inside of the wrap. Not good. So if you want to go and eat real good Mexican food, check the reviews, check the website, check the Instagram. You will find a good buy. So Mexican food was my discovery actually when it comes to food. And the last thing I want to share about California, California is the paradise for alcohol-free products. In almost every store, you have alcohol-free beer, you have alcohol-free wine, you have those functional drinks. Probiotic soda is a huge thing in the US, and I tried so many good products, tasty products, fresh products, and at least according to the ingredients list, healthy products. Low in sugar, tasty, fresh. There's acidity in it, so you have this refreshing mouth feel, and usually it's tasty. I mean, they work with natural aromas every now and then, but the scene over there, the alcohol-free scene, is big. There is also some restaurants and bars that are focused on alcohol-free products. Mocktails is a big thing over there. But just, I don't know, my favorite one was a chain called Bevmo. Bevmo is a liquor store chain throughout California, and they have a whole section for alcohol-free products. And I mean, Athletic, Corona, Guinness, Heineken, Clausthal, also the German ones, and then all those probiotic, Olipop, Athletic, once again. Then there were even local ones. We do an extra episode on that with a tasting, and I will put my tasting notes on YouTube, and I will put my tasting notes on YouTube and on Instagram as well. And I would say, over the next 4 to 6 weeks, really interesting stuff. So if you want to discover more in that area, California is the place. And actually, it's quite affordable. You get a really good alcohol-free beer for maybe $1.50 a can. The only thing is the Americans are not used to sell single cans. So if you want to do a tasting, you usually have to buy a 6-pack. And it's not a mixed one. So if you were interested, as I was, in the Athletic brewing products, you have to buy 3 6-packs or share it with other people, or be lucky enough to find a gas station where they just open the 6-packs and sell it separately. That's what I did. And yeah, I discovered some great products, and I would check while preparing the tastings for YouTube if they are available in Central Europe. And at least Athletic is, and the other ones I will put in the show notes and in the tasting notes. So this was it when it comes to Napa Valley, Sonoma Valley, California, great region, so many things to discover. Please always remember, especially for California, preparation, do your research, reservation, check out that you get a spot beforehand, and moderation. Drink responsibly. That's it for this week's episode on Wednesday. Have a great week. See you on Saturday with the weekly update. Ciao, ciao.